In 2004, the world was introduced to one of the most terrorizing and powerful cards to ever be printed. Luster Soldier Envoy of the beginning. This card literally caused so much chaos that it was banned the next year after it was released. So when Konami announced that an archetype based around BLS was being made in 2015, people were terrified and excited about the potential it would have. It's too bad that the archetype was more focused about retraining the ritual version of the card rather than the chaos one. Now, as stated, a big reason for the hype of this archetype was the fact that it combined the ritual aspects of BLS with the chaos and effects of Envoy at the beginning. It was also released around the time when players were still getting used to seeing BLS in the format in years. The card's notoriety was immense as it was easy to summon, as its requirements was only removing a light and dark monster from your graveyard. Came with a whopping 3000 attack, and it had a soft once per turn effect that lets you banish one monster in the field, or make a second attack in a row if it destroys a monster by battle. Already having an easy summoning condition and removing two of the most highly supported attributes in the graveyard to get a 3000 card was laughable. Then it gave that card the ability to clear monsters off the field through banishment or punch over them with 3000 attack. It became more dangerous on its return to the game in 2011 thanks to becoming a dangerous OTK machine with Armory Arm, which would be able to pump up your Envoy beginning to 4000 and do burn damage equal to the monsters you destroyed with it. So a 4000 BLS swinging into 2 attack position monsters with less than 4000 attack was an immediate OTK. It's situations like this that made it a tough decision to justify getting this card at 3. Outside of the fact that the game is at a point where such a ridiculous card like this is seen as either slow or just being power corrupt. So why did this ritual card become the center of attention instead of the Chaos BLS? Well, there are 2 main reasons. One is that you're destined to become a retrain if you're a part of Yugioh's deck. 2 is that Konami was already working on making ritual monsters operational. Ritual summoning was considered too heavy a cost and would make the player go -1 just to summon one monster. With the successful hit of Necros, Konami continued to explore new ways to make rituals appealing and viable for players to actually use.
Thank goodness it worked. Quick, we don't have time. I'm a blue version of you from the future and I need your help.
Oh, hey. Do you like food?
We don't have time for this. The very timeline is in danger.
Do you like food but hate cooking?
Why, yes, I do.
Did you know that you can get chef-prepared meals on the table in 2 minutes with factors ready to eat meals, so you can get back to doing what you love this spring?
That sounds too good to be true.
When things get hectic, Factor is flexible. Change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime.
Wait. Is this an ad? Are you using this once-in-a-lifetime experience to tell me about fast food?
Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, small bites, and more to keep me going no matter what's on the schedule.
Oh no, the connection's unstable. We've wasted too much time.
Thanks to Factor75 for sponsoring today's video. Use my link to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. The first bit of new BLS support appeared in Shonen Jump promo card of July 2014, Luster Soldier Envoy of Evening Twilight, which was a level 8 warrior with the same stats as Envoy at the beginning, and was also treated as a light monster. Unlike BLS, it must be special summoned by removing all light or dark monsters from your graveyard, while you have an equal number of both. When it's special summoned, it can either gain one of 2 effects. If it banished all light monsters, target one monster in the field and banish it. If it banished all dark monsters, banish one card from your opponent's hand face down until your opponent's end phase. As you can imagine, by reading this card, you'd see why it was nearly unplayable. Not only did you have to have an equal amount of lights and darks to summon it, but then you had to remove all said resources for only one of 2 effects. It also took away your battle phase. To do all this for a 3000 attack monster who prevents you from attacking with all your monsters, including its poster child, or soldier in this case, for a card that doesn't really do much when it hits the field was just too steep of a cost. It also didn't really affect any changes to the BLS deck, as Envoy at the beginning was still a strong boss monster to play. So don't focus on the Envoy of garbage anymore. It's time to introduce the real stars of failed cards. Introduce a Dimension of Chaos where the 9 cards needed for the archetype. Beginning Knight was a level 4 warrior monster with 500 attack, 2000 defense that gave a Luster Soldier ritual monster the ability to target one monster in the field to banish it, and to swing once more in a row if you destroyed a monster by battle and send it to the graveyard. If Beginning Knight is banished from your graveyard, you can add 1 ritual spell card from your deck to your hand. Evening Twilight Knight was also a level 4 warrior that gave the same abilities to a Luster Soldier monster when it was used for its ritual summoning. It gains the ability to target 1 card in the field and banish it, and could also banish 1 card from your opponent's hand face down to the end phase. When Evening Twilight is banished from the grave, you can search a ritual monster from your deck to your hand. Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight is the next monster. It's a level 7 warrior with 2300 attack and 2100 defense. You can normal summon this card without tributing, but its original attack becomes 1900. When it's tributed, you can add 1 BLS monster from your deck to your hand. Super Soldier Soul was a level 1 with 0 attack and defense. You can send one BLS from your hand to the grave to make this card's attack become 3000, and its name Luster Soldier until the end of your opponent's turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard to add either a Beginning Night or Evening Twilight Night from your deck to your hand. With Evening and Beginning Night, you can give your Luster Soldier extra abilities on top of being a 3000 attack beat stick with the max potential of being able to banish 2 cards on field, swinging 2 times, and banishing a card from your opponent's hand. But you wouldn't give these benefits to no regular Luster Soldier, you'd give it to a Super Soldier. Luster Soldier Super Soldier was a level 8 Earth Warrior ritual monster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense. You can ritual summon it with a Super Soldier ritual, and when it destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the grave, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's attack. If this card is destroyed in your possession by your opponent by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Gaia the Fierce Knight monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Super Soldier Ritual was a ritual spell that could special summon any BLS monster by tributing monsters whose levels equal exactly 8. You can also banish this card during your main phase, except on the turn it's sent to the graveyard, alongside one light and one dark monster to special summon one BLS ritual monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions. Gateway of Chaos was their field spell. On activation, you can add one BLS ritual monster from your deck to your hand. Every time a monster card is sent to the graveyard, you can place one spell counter on this card. You can remove 3 counters to add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand once per turn. Super Soldier Rebirth kicks off with traps. You can target a BLS monster you control and send it to the graveyard to special summon a BLS monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions. During the main phase, except the turn this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card to target a BLS monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. Finally, Super Soldier Shield is a counter trap which can negate the activation of any spell, trap, or monster effect that targets a BLS monster you control and destroy it. If this card's in your grave, you can remove one spell counter to your side of the field and reset this card back face down to your side of the field, but banish it when it leaves the field. While not optimal, many recognize the playstyle of BLS as fun, as ritual summoning Super Soldier was a rewarding aspect, knowing that you gain extra effects by tributing your level 4 knights, which gained you benefits and removal, being able to dispose of up to 3 of your opponent's cards, and get an extra swing of the monster that now came with the built-in arm effect. From there on, it goes downhill. While they were solid support, none of it was protecting BLS except shield, and that wasn't even enough as it only protected against cards that target and was completely useless against any effects which didn't need to target at all. The second issue was the strict requirement of the new ritual spell. Super Soldier Ritual needing you to have exactly 8 for the ritual summon made it difficult to summon Super Soldiers since you couldn't go over the amount. So if you were hoping to summon BLS Ritual with a charging Gaia and a level 4 Knight, the plan was almost immediately sniped because the spells allowed no flexibility or adjustment. It's either Gaia plus Soul or 2 level 4 Knights. To make things even worse, it was almost mandatory that you have to make your ritual with the level 4 Knights, as the other route will either leave you with a plain level 8 beatstick, or a level 8 beatstick that floats into a single charging Gaia. Also, poor searching played a heavy factor in the deck. Getting the mini Knights was near luck outside of drawing them, and the deck had no direct search. Rhoda was your best chance, but you'd also have to get lucky since Rhoda was still at 1 at this time. They also had issues running conventional ritual support cards as well. Preparation of Rites wasn't conventional since you could only fetch level 7s or lowers. And pre-preparation of Rites could only fetch the original BLS Ritual and Luster Soldier Ritual, since Super Soldier Ritual couldn't be searched as it stated any BLS Ritual monster and not Luster Soldier specifically. Your boss monster was also geared for going second. This left you with almost no plays going first and no way to interact with your opponent, leaving your boards breakable and easy to deal with. This deck had too many holes and was too slow to be played at a high level at the time of its release, even with the back end of Envoy at the beginning. The deck was also seen as more of a deck you'd use with your locals for fun. That didn't stop Konami from printing continuous support for it, as we saw later in the 2016 set Breaker of Shadows. Luster Soldier Sacred Soldier was a level 8 light warrior with 3000 attack and 2500 defense. If this card was normal or specialed, you can target one light or dark monster that's banished and one card your opponent controls. Return the banished target to the grave, and then banish your opponent's card. When this card destroys a monster by battle, you can add a level 7 or lower warrior monster from your graveyard to your hand. Horizon, Gaia the Fierce Knight, was a level 7 dark warrior monster that can be normal summon without tribute if your opponent controls more monsters than you do. If this card is tributed, you can special summon a BLS monster from your hand or graveyard. If this card's in your grave, you can banish this card as one of the required tributes for the ritual summon of a BLS monster. These 2 cards didn't see play due to the overwhelming popularity of ritual summoning with the level 4 Knights, as the build was more powerful and consistent and was better without having to use the Gaia monsters. On top of the playstyle, these cards were considered cloggy and bricks. Sacred Soldier had no way of bringing itself out quickly, needing another effect or to be tribute summoned to get to the field. The deck had options like Rebirth and Horizon to play, but the setup was super slow for the Super Soldier deck. So instead of getting something to improve the engine, they gained another inconsistent slug. However, that wouldn't last long, as the deck got a very powerful card in the next set, Raging Tempest. Super Soldier Synthesis was a new ritual spell that could ritual summon any BLS ritual monster by using one light and one dark monster, one from your hand and the other from the deck to the graveyard, whose levels equal exactly 8. This was a fantastic ritual for the deck, as now you didn't need to have both level 4 monsters in your hand and you could do the ritual summon without having to search out 2 cards. You'd also still gain the abilities from the mini knights, as they weren't required to be tributed for ritual summoning, but used for the ritual summon of a BLS monster only. To make it even better is the fact that the monsters could also ritual summon them from the graveyard. Then use the 2 monsters sent to the grave as fodder for BLS Envoy at the beginning, and then search another set of ritual spells and monsters via the mini knight search effects. The next card introduced was Envoy of Chaos, a level 4 dark monster with 1500 attack and defense. During the battle phase, you can discard this card and target one BLS or Guy the Fierce Knight monster and give it 1500 attack until the end of the turn. And any monster it battles has their attack become their original attack during damage calculation. During the end phase, you can banish one light and one dark monster from your grave to add this card back to your hand. Finally, Beginning of Heaven and Earth was their newest trap card that lets you reveal 3 word type monsters from your deck, including a BLS or Guy the Fierce Knight monster to your opponent. Your opponent randomly selects one, and if it's a BLS or Guy the Fierce Knight monster, add it to your hand and send the rest to the graveyard. If not, send them all to the graveyard. Envoy of Chaos helped towards the game plan of making sure a super powered super soldier could OTK. With Synthesis making it easy to get both Knights' abilities, there was no issue guaranteeing that you'd have your super soldier having the abilities to swing twice. With Envoy of Chaos boosting to 1500 and the burn effect of super soldier, you'd have the potential to do 9,000 points of damage through the battle and burn. However, BLS was still vulnerable to your opponent's card effects, as the deck still had no protection when swinging or if your opponent could remove BLS from the field before the battle phase. By the time this deck got more consistent cards to compete, the format was already in a state of quick effect cards and hand traps, a guaranteed pain in the armor for this archetype. This deck became more of a glass cannon that could not respond to your opponent's effects. This deck had little to no impact, even with its new support at its beckon. By 2018, the deck was completely unable to keep up with the standard format, even with BLS Envoy at the beginning finally being put to 3 since its release in Invasion of Chaos all those years ago. In 2019 Battle of Legends, they gave us Luster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos, a Link 3 with 3000 attack that requires 3 monsters with different names. And if you use a level 7 or higher monster to make it, it can't be targeted by card effects, and your opponent can't destroy it by card effects. When it destroys a monster by battle, you can activate one of 3 effects, where you can have this card gain a permanent 1500 attack boost, be able to make a second attack during your next turn, or banish one card on the field. This card sees play even today because it's a generic Link 3. In today's game, getting 3 monsters on field is easy since most combo decks can spam monsters and even produce tokens. Trading in 3 monsters for a 3000 attack monster that can banish a card and gain attack is a steal, since many Link monsters with 3000 plus attack either take more material, specific material, or Link climbing to make. The only downside of the card is that it wasn't really made just for BLS. It was generic and doesn't really help the clearly ritual focused deck. In fact, they got a literal support that noted BLS in their tags, which didn't really do anything for the deck. Cards like Master of Chaos, Chaos Form, and even Master of Chaos included BLS, but weren't BLS focused. They were more based on the Chaos sub-archetypes growth instead of just BLS. So the world's coolest Chaos Warrior was still in a place it was in 2015. The final piece of support came out in Maze of Memories. Luster Soldier Legendary Swordsmaster was an Earth level 8 monster with the same stats as its predecessors. It can be ritual summoned with Chaos Form or Super Soldier Ritual. And during the draw phase, you can add a ritual spell card from your deck to your hand instead of conducting your normal draw. Your opponent couldn't activate cards or effects during the battle phase, and if this card is ritual summoned using a normal monster when attacking, if this card destroys a monster by battle, you can shuffle all cards your opponent controls into the deck. While Sacred Swordmaster had an effect that could potentially board wipe your opponent, needing to run a Garnet normal monster to activate its effect essentially meant having to play a brick to meet a requirement. On top of that, it wasn't like the card couldn't be stopped either, as a hand trap like Effect Veil or Imperm could just negate the effect before going to the battle phase. Players on a whole could just effectively deal with the monster before the battle phase even came up. With that comes the unfortunate tale of BLS. The deck was a slow second turn deck that put all of its eggs into one basket to perform an OTK. You know what rhymes with a slow deck that can't perform in the regular TCG? That's right, Duel Links, where the deck is actually a tier 1 threat to this day. Duel Links' slower style gameplay allows the deck to thrive during the battle phase. Also, Duel Links allows these skills to assist decks in gameplay, which is why BLS is thriving there. The Soul of Light and Darkness is a skill that activates at the beginning of the duel, where you send the Souls of Light and Darkness and a Super Soldier Ritual from your deck to the graveyard, but for the rest of the duel, you can only summon BLS monsters, Guide the Fierce Knight monsters, and monsters with a rank or level. Once per turn, when a Black Luster Soldier monster is activated, add one Black Luster Soldier ritual monster from your deck to your hand when there are no monsters with the same name in your graveyard and or on the field. Then add up to 3 of your banished cards back to your hand. Once per duel, if the original Black Luster Soldier is on the field, you can set one ritual spell from your deck to your side of the field. Soul of Light and Darkness is the name of a package of cards sent to the graveyard at the beginning of the duel. Those cards are Dark Magician, Charging Gaia, Rising Gaia, Mystic Elf, Sphere Karibo, and Super Soldier Soul. So, not only do you start with a package of graveyard fodder, but the graveyard effect of Super Soldier Soul is immediately live since you don't have to wait until the turn it's into the graveyard, granting you access to any BLS monster on the first turn. On top of that, you get back the material you use in your graveyard and a free ritual spell. This usually comes in the form of Chaos Form, which lets you summon a BLS ritual monster by banishing monsters from your graveyard. You'd get 2 monsters hilariously at the cost of nothing except accepting the duel. With this skill, our Chaos Soldier has found a place in the land of Duel Links, brutally slaying your opponent in an almost unstoppable combo. Now, only if they could have extended the Light and Soul of Darkness to the competitive TCG where they needed it. BLS may be recognized for having one of the greatest boss monsters of all time in their beckon, but it was only a matter of time until the card would eat a power creep and become too slow to give you success. The deck was very inconsistent on release, and by the time I got cards like Synthesis, it was too linear to compete with the meta. Your ritual spells always needing to equal exactly 8 didn't give any benefits either, and made running anything outside of the Midi-Knights pointless. Barely having any interactions on your opponent's turn and being a battle phase oriented deck also helped seal its fate, as well as the deck not having any effective board breakers to deal with your opponent's interactions. The monsters had no protection, no quick effects, and depended on the materials to become a threat. The days of just being beefy with no protection just don't cut it anymore. Hopefully, we'll see BLS get the right amount of support it needs to thrive in this day and age, as it's honestly one of Yu-Gi-Oh's coolest monsters. If Gen X could get forgiven, why not one of the coolest Chaos monsters ever printed? Fingers crossed that we'll get that support soon so BLS can be as he once was. A terrifying force that made us wonder, why did Konami print this card again?